Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football as we head to the ACC as the Virginia Cavaliers go on the road to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This is kind of an uglier game. The Virginia Cavaliers very much struggling to adjust to what Tony Elliott is trying to do. And then the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets interim coach and Coach Brent Key. You'd be lying to yourself if this Georgia Tech team was not playing some very good football under him. He's 2-0. Beating Pitt on the road, and that Pitt team is a solid team, and then beating Duke at home. Two very good teams. You saw Duke just give UNC all they could handle last night. This is going to be a really good one. Before we get into it, though, as usual, just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel. We talk a lot of ACC football. We did summer scouting on both of these teams. You guys have been awesome with the support. So if you do enjoy the content, you like talking ball, consider subscribing to the channel. We really do appreciate that. And then like the video. Let us know in the comments who you got winning this game, what players to watch. We love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. That is why we do this, and the support you guys have shown truly means a lot. Let's start talking some football, and I feel like we have to start. This is a game betting on that. You're not necessarily itching to bet on either team. The Virginia Cavaliers have kind of looked lost on the offensive side of football, not really in identity. And then the Georgia Tech team that I honestly don't think is as bad as the narrative is in the national media. They're 3-3. I mean, with their losses coming to a very good Clemson team, top 5 Clemson team, on the road to a very good UCF team. If you follow college football pretty closely, you know UCF is the real deal. And then an Ole Miss blowout where, yeah, the scoreboard looks ugly, but this Ole Miss team is a top 10 team. So 2 losses to teams in the top 10, and then a very, very good UCF team on the road in the bounce house. This Georgia Tech team has beaten some impressive wins. I mean, they're coming off 2 wins against Pitt on the road and Duke, a very, very good team. And then the Virginia Cavaliers, nothing really to be excited about. You hung in there in Syracuse, but then the last 2 games really kind of got out of hand. Georgia Tech, at least you have kind of something that you like with Georgia Tech. Jeff Sims is a playmaker. Yeah, he's still developing. He's a young kid and someone that we've been talking about since he's been a true freshman. He's a very good athlete. He has a talented arm, just not really having the protection he needs, not really having the playmakers around him, and really struggling to develop. He's kind of looked pretty good the last couple of games, and they run the ball extremely well. I mean, Hassan Hall's been running the ball very well. Dante Smith and Jeff Sims all averaging over 5 yards per carry the last couple of games. You kind of have an identity if you're Georgia Tech. And also, one other thing to note is they've been playing pretty good defensively the last couple of games. They're forcing over 2 turnovers per game, and that's kind of when you look at betting on college football and picking teams to win, the turnover margin is massive. They're not turning the ball. They're turning the ball 0.7 times per game, so not even a full turnover per game on offense, and then they're forcing 2 turnovers per game. That is a recipe for winning football. You look on the other side, Virginia is turning the ball over 2.5 times per game. Brennan Armstrong has thrown 7 interceptions. Again, a very talented quarterback, Brennan Armstrong. If you remember what he did last year, extremely impressive. But we talked about this in the summer. This Tony Elliott hire for Virginia is just a lot of question marks, right? He's coming over from Clemson, where that offense was one of the worst, and not just the ACC, but in the entire country. And then you hire the guy who was calling the plays to take over your program. You can see there's a little tension between Virginia, Tony Elliott wanting to run the football, and then Brennan Armstrong obviously being a part of kind of more of that air raid scheme where they have guys like Keontae Thompson, Wicks, Billy Kemp. They have some really talented playmakers, and you look at what they're doing, they're just not really getting the ball to those kind of guys. I mean, Wicks only has 300 yards on the year. Billy Kemp has been banged up, but only 5 catches for 33 yards. Those are guys that you were kind of excited to see and thought this Virginia offense, they have the playmakers to be much more explosive than they are. They don't really have an identity. They're trying to establish the run, but they don't run the ball very effectively, only averaging less than 4 yards per carry. Getting into the pick, you got to like Georgia Tech with the interim head coach at home Thursday night. Georgia Tech fans it's an underrated fan base. They've been through a lot. This adjustment from that option scheme has been tough. There's been a lot of really bad football, but you go watch that game with Duke at home against Georgia Tech. Those fans were showing out, and I think there's a little bit more of an excitement with the interim head coach. Not necessarily saying he's going to get the job, but there's some excitement. You have a new coach. There's some buzz around this program, and you're picking teams to which team is going to show up Thursday and kind of get their back off the mat. I don't think Virginia is going to do that. I think there's a lot of probably some frustration building up in that locker room. They are coming off a very, very good season for Virginia last year, specifically on the offense side of the ball. And then they just can't find a rhythm. I think that, again, there's some tension between what Brennan Armstrong is good at and the tools that he has and the tools that this offense has, and then what Tony Elliott is trying to do. Georgia Tech coming in at 3.5-point favorites at home. You look at the last two games for both these teams coming off byes. I mean, Georgia Tech getting run out of the building on the road at Duke and then at home against Louisville, not even with Malik Cunningham playing. Then you look at what Georgia Tech's done the last two games. Very, very good win on the road at Pitt, and then a very good overtime win against Duke. You have to lean with Georgia Tech. Again, they have some playmakers. Jeff Sims is a very, very dynamic quarterback. I don't need to say that much. You guys, the Georgia Tech fans, know how I feel about Jeff Sims. But even on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Charlie Thomas is playing some really, really good football, 52 tackles. I'm going to mess up this guy's name, but he's been an absolute animal and wasn't really on my radar until this year. Ayande Ellie, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 tackles, 3.5 sacks. This Georgia Tech team kind of flies around on the defensive side of the ball, and they force turnovers. That is something that Virginia has very much struggled to keep under control on the offensive side of the ball. I think the story of this game is Georgia Tech establishing that run game with Jeff Sims. Virginia's allowing over 4 yards per carry on the ground. And then on the other side, Georgia Tech putting some pressure on it. They're replacing all 5 linemen from last year, the Virginia Cavaliers are, getting Brennan Armstrong in some difficult spots and kind of forcing him into some mistakes, which you've seen him do multiple times this year already. Give me Georgia Tech at home. This game, honestly, a Thursday night, not a lot of people paying attention to it on the national media. The Georgia Tech fans are exciting. There's a little bit of some buzz around this program that we haven't really been able to say that for a couple years now. Give me Georgia Tech. I think it's going to be a rowdy environment in Atlanta, Georgia. The fans deserve this. This is more of a gut pick than anything else. Again, these are two teams that you're not necessarily that excited to bet on. As a college football fan, I want to see Georgia Tech win this game, get to a 4-3 record, and, I mean, maybe make a bowl game. This would be a very, very fun story for college football as a whole. Give me Georgia Tech winning by 3.5 points. I actually kind of like this pick just from the heart. Just this is a straight up heart one I'm excited for. Again, we appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys for real. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.